Hello everyone, my name is Dorian and welcome to Imola, or Autodromo Enzo Edino Ferrari. I'm just going to show you guys the lap real quick, and then we're going to take it corner by corner. I'm using the Mercedes AMG GT3 with the fixed setup. Brake bias is at 55.2. Never liked this track till now. GT3s just seem to work really well here. It's how they handle the curbs, I think. Either way, if you enjoyed, leave a like, and if you want to see more of it, subscribe to the channel. That's it. Let's get on the track. Okay, so we're coming up to turn number 1. Now, before our braking point, we want to set up the car to have a nice straight line when you're braking. So as you can see, I'm turning the car to the left slightly here, just to make sure I'm braking diagonally to the outside here. And that's going to allow for a longer braking distance and have a straight car as possible, really, because you can see it curves around here. So you don't really want to follow the white line when you're braking. You want to use this little wheel input while you're braking. So I'm just going to straighten out the car and just brake diagonally. The braking point is this access route, so right as we reach it, I'm going to lift off the throttle, and as we kind of cross it, I'm already going to initiate some brakes. And braking to the outside, you can see the wheel is pretty straight at this point, just braking diagonally, aiming towards the white line on the outside here, peaking pretty high, around 80-70%, modulating a little bit, trying not to burn up the front tires too much. And I'm going to stay in third gear for the corner here for this chicane. And the way I'm going to prevent the understeer to occur is basically go from 70% brakes, 60%, 80% to immediately into around 10%. So it's going to happen right as I turn in the car. And as I do that, the car is going to have a tendency to snap, which is normally not what you want when your front tires are burning up so much because of the long braking distance. You really want to help them by over-rotating the rear, and that's just going to unsettle the car just a little bit. Because you're in third gear, the car is not going to get too upset. So in second, it might have been a bit too much. And it's going to rotate nicely into the corner. And I'm going to clip this curb quite a lot, and as I do, I'm going to start accelerating. By the time I land, I'm going to go back to 100%. And I want to stay committed to 100% here, but sometimes it's impossible to do that, especially if you're drafting. So I would suggest just keep that in mind. Don't always try to commit to 100%. I clipped this curb a little too early, which caused me to get washed out to the outside a bit too much. Theoretically, I want to stay slightly more to the right. Might be half a tenth in it for me here, but wasn't too bad. I kept it flat, clipped this curb nicely. You really do want to do that because it will kind of open up the exit here. So even though I had a compromised line, I still made it through the corner without getting off track, using all of the curb and the green stuff on the way out. And make sure you return to the track by the time this curb kind of ends, so you won't get an off track. And now going into the second chicane, we have the 100 board and the 50. We're going to brake somewhere between them. I would say around 75, 70, 80, something like that. Right around here. Now, this corner is very tricky. you really want to compromise the first corner to take the second one well. You want to lose theoretically a tenth on entry here, just so you can gain 2, 3, 4 tenths on exit. So that's the sort of delta that I was looking at here when I was practicing for this track. So I'm gonna peak high again, around, I don't know, 75%. Release it. As you can see, I want to initiate a lot of rotation. I'm doing it in 4th gear. I'm going to start to rotate the car right around here, and as I do, I'm going to release the brakes quite rapidly. That's going to give me a lot of rotation, and I'm going to release them almost all together, just being very, very gentle with the car, trying to clip the first apex and staying on the left here. That's the crucial part. So this is why we take the compromise, so we can open up this corner as much as we can. If you find yourself washing out to the middle of the track, or even worse, to the right here, you're just going to lose potentially up to half a second on the exit here. So you really want to try to keep the car to the left here as much as you can. You can see I'm just hugging the white line here, and I'm braking again. So I'm splitting my brake times, and I'm braking again. I got this rubber to indicate when I need to turn in the car. Downshift into 3rd just now. And the car's just going to rotate nicely. I don't even need to trail brake. And I'm going back to the power very, very, very early indeed. So I'm sort of aiming to clip this curb too much and then letting the power wash me away from it. Because if you clip this curb too much, you will get a time penalty. So I'm just, I saw that I had a lot of rotation, so I returned to the throttle very early. And that's going to give us a nice smooth line to the exit here. So as soon as we finish this curb, we're already back on the apex, we're already back to 100%, and letting the car wash out to the outside, and you're through. Staying in 3rd, no point of upshifting to 4th. I don't find it useful. Now the 50 board is your friend, but you can also use this little tip here of the access route. That's a better indication, in my opinion, because it's closer to where you want to be looking at next. So it's closer to the apex here. So I'm looking here, and then it's easier for me to shift my horizon through this area. So I'm using that. I'm braking right at it, peaking pretty high, not too high though, around 65-70%. Gradually releasing it, and I'm gonna downshift into 2nd quite late here. And the reason for that is because I want to have a late turn in. So if I downshift very early, the car's gonna have its peak rotation theoretically very, very early in the corner. So you're either gonna turn in too early or just gonna understeer here once you really want to turn in the car. So when you downshift late, you will get that peak rotations when you actually need it. If you want to turn in late, that is. Releasing the brakes, trail braking, trying to grab it as a late apex here. Already neutral and already back on the power at this point. Nice and gradual, 40, 50, 60%. Staying on it for a while, just waiting for the car to settle down. Nice and late into the curb here. Open up the wheel, squeezing more of the throttle all the way back to 100%. Taking all of this road on the outside, all this green stuff, and you're through. Now, setting yourself up for the next corner, you just want to take a nice short route on the inside here and line yourself nice and straight. Make sure the car is perfectly straight for the braking point, which is right at the 50. So I'm going to brake right here as I'm parallel to the 50 sign. Peaking a bit too high, if you ask me, because you'll see what happens when you do that. I peaked a bit too high, and because of that, the car got slowed down too much. Maybe 10% less would have been better. Slow down too much, and I clipped this inside curb here. Now I'm already downshifting from 5th into 4th, now into 3rd. Just now, very late downshift. You want that peak rotation right towards the apex. Problem is I clipped this curb a bit too much, and that upset the car, made it wash out on the exit because it was still bouncing coming down from the curb. Now you want to clip this curb maybe a little bit, maybe this initial part, but I was all the way on it, and that's too tall for the car at this speed. It's gonna get unsettled. So braking a little bit less, but at the same point would have been fine. I would have gained maybe a tenth from it, but definitely half a tenth. Very easy to get half a tenth if you just don't clip this part too much. As you can see, on the apex, I'm already returned to the throttle nice and gradually, very lazy with the throttle, not in any particular rush to slam it back to 100%, just trying to carry the speed. Yeah, washed out quite a bit, as you can see. I would prefer not to get washed out too far out to the outside here. It's very close to an off track, and it's also you're scrubbing speed. You're taking a long route. So yeah, definitely have a 10th or a 10th in it if I just, make sure that apex is nice and clear. Now, staying in 4th gear, and we're gonna brake right before the 50. And I'm gonna peak. Now, Aqua Minerale is very tricky. Again, you're taking a compromise here to make sure you get a good exit on the second right-hander. The problem is if you take too much of a compromise, you're just going to lose a huge amount of time that you won't be able to recover on the second apex. So you kind of want to carry as much speed as you can without being too greedy. And the way I do that is I try to be very, very smooth. I stay in 4th gear. I don't upshift into 5th. I want that engine brake. That really helps me both rotate the car without using too much steering input, which is exactly what I want to prevent here. I want to use as little steering as possible. But also it kind of slows the car down without having to use too much brake either. Now, as you can see, I'm picking around 40%, starting to turn in the car, and then I'm going to release it, start trail braking, clipping this curb just a little bit. Don't clip it too much. If you do, that's going to be a time penalty, and it's going to upset the car. There's no benefit from doing that, I think. And I'm clipping this curb a little bit, and as you can see, as soon as I do, I'm about to go back on more braking, so I'm just modulating the brake. I need to slow the car down. Remember, I'm still in 4th gear, mind you. It's keeping the car nice and settled. If you try to downshift too early here, it's gonna get upset. Stay in 4th gear. You can see I'm back to trail braking, getting some rotation down, and now again I'm braking again around 30%, just slowing the car down. And only now I'm gonna downshift into 3rd using that engine brake. And I'm going to let the car go all the way on the curb here. This is vital. This is the most important part of this corner. If you don't use all of this curb, and let's say you're staying just to the right of this white line, you're probably going to lose like half a second or 3/4 tenths easy just on the exit alone. Excuse me. Now, taking the car all the way to the outside, really maximizing my approach. And the turn-in point is quite obvious. So you have the rubber that signals you when you want to turn in, but you also have this little triangle as the curb ends, and you want to follow that. And as soon as you start following that, you want to downshift into 2nd. That's going to peak your rotation right when you need it. You can see I'm braking pretty hard right before it, so I'm just slowing the car just enough so I can make it through this corner without missing the apex. Trail braking just a little bit, and as I can see, I'm about to clip it. I want to start accelerating because I don't want to clip it too much. It's gonna upset the car on the exit. You don't want to get these bump stops. It's no bueno. So already back on the power, around 50%. The car is very, very stable, so even if I clip the curb, it's not gonna get too unsettled. And squeezing it all the way to 100%. As I open up the wheel, you can see the remaining 50% of the throttle comes with the wheel. It's very there's very much a string connected to both of them. And you clipping this curb on the outside, not too much, not too little. If you do it too much, obviously there's a time penalty. Everybody knows that. It's a menace, but a bit better now that they fixed the off tracks. And you're through. The final chicane. Well, probably the hardest corner for me to get consistent on, to remain consistent on, do it the same time. I can never do it the same lap after lap. There's always something different. Now, I'm always braking at the same point, but every time I turn in a little bit earlier, a little bit later, it's really going to make a huge difference in my entry speed and exit speed. This is how I did it this time. I did lose a little bit of pace on it, maybe a tenth, but I think it's safer this way. So you got the 50 board, and you got 1, 2, 3 trees. So the 3rd tree from the 50 board, when you're parallel to it, you can see I'm already starting to lift the throttle. And brake, and I'm gonna brake very, very, very hard, 90%. I just want to brake late here. And as I start to turn in the car, which is right around this point, you have this bridge here, whatever it is. Right before it, we're gonna start to turn in the car, release the brakes all the way down to 2nd just now, and that's gonna give me some rotation. And I'm gonna clip this curb like crazy. As you can see, I got none of the car. I'll show you from the outside in a sec. I got pretty much none of the car on the tarmac. It's all on the curb here. A little bit too much of that, by the way, is a time penalty, but you can really abuse it way before you get that time penalty. You can see I'm still turning right, mind you. I'm not trying to straighten out the car. A lot of people I see when they trying to mount this curb, they're already straightening out the wheel, worried about the car snapping or trying to prepare themselves for the left-hander here. but I still want to open up this left-hander as much as I can. So you can see I'm still turning right, opening up as much as I can under landing. Now the car is nice and settled. Gonna touch the brakes just a little bit, probably not necessary, but it's really beneficial if you want to get a nice consistent exit here. And rotate the car, clip this curb again. This one I don't clip as much. I think my right tire is on the tarmac here. And I'm already back on the power just to stabilize the car. Not trying to accelerate too harshly here. Just squeeze in the throttle, and as the car lands, get a bit more aggressive with it. Back to 100%, using the green stuff on the way out, and you're through. Look at it from the outside for a second. Got a chase. Right here, you can see I got no car on the tarmac anymore. Almost on, yeah, pretty much on the grass here. And still turning right, open up this corner, dab of the brakes. The car rotates and responds really nicely to that. Squeeze and throttle on the way out, and you're through. Now, for the next corner, or the final double right-hander, you can see I'm gonna open up this corner quite a lot, just to make sure I got a nice straight car under braking. You don't want to be too tight on the inside here early, because that's gonna give you a hard time straightening out the car before the braking point. We're gonna brake right at the 100. You want to brake here for safety or when drafting, but right here is when I brake if I'm just trying to get the best out possible. And I'm gonna peak again. We're going downhill here, and we're carrying quite a lot of speed. So before we start braking, almost 240 kilometers an hour, and I'm gonna brake very, very high because of that. Because we're going downhill, carrying a lot of speed. This is second gear corner. We really want to slow the car down, and right now I'm in third. I'm going to stay in third for a pretty long time. Only going to downshift into second just now, as I really need that rotation get done. Really want to take advantage of the diff with GT3s. So you want to downshift. The last downshift is the one that's closest to your hardest turning, the hardest turning point of the corner. If that makes sense. I think you guys got me. If not, let me know in the comments. I'll try to explain it better. And just trail braking into the curb, mounting it, and as I do, back on the power, stabilizing the car, and starting to accelerate out of it. By the time I finish the curb, about 50%, not trying to be too aggressive here. Let the car wash out, going back to 100%, using all of the curb that's available to me. All this green stuff here is nice for you, it's good for you. Yeah, and we have the tarmac variation here, so right before it, I'm gonna lift. Now, you don't have to touch the brakes here. I did that just to make sure I don't ruin a perfectly good lap. But you don't have to. You can just lift and the car should stick pretty much 9 out of 10. I was just taking a precaution here. And we're going to initiate the turn-in. Not too early, not too late. I don't know if that helps you at all. But I think as we cross this color variations when we need to start to turn in the car really. And clipping this curb, not too much, not too little. Again, not very useful, but about half, I don't know, a third of the car on it. A little bit more would be a penalty, so you want to keep that in mind. You can see I'm at around 60%, just waiting on it as the car lands. Back on the power, back at the 100%, using all the curb that's available to me. And you're through. So I'm using second gear throughout these double left-handers. You can use third on the second one. I find it less consistent, potentially a little bit faster, but less consistent, 100%. And when you're trying to get the best lap time possible, just stick to the inside for an easy half a tenth, and that's gonna give us a 141.483. Hope you guys enjoyed this track guide. If you did, please leave a like. Let me know in the comments what you think, and if you want to see more of it, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.